Hello, my name is Francois Pouwer. I'm a medical psychologist who is specialized in diabetes research, and I'm affiliated to University of Southern Denmark, Department of Psychology, to Steno Diabetes Center Odense, and I'm affiliated member of Driven. Very happy to be one, and I have a guest professorship with Amsterdam UMC in the Netherlands. In this short presentation, I'd like to share a few key areas of research that I'm interested in. The very first area is the psychological impact of having diabetes. So in the past years, I've studied the associations between diabetes and major depressive disorder. I've studied whether quality of life is impacted in people with diabetes, and also whether hypoglycemia, low blood glucose levels in people with diabetes, are associated to quality of life. Focused my research on the other sources of diabetes distress as well. And a second key area are the psychological and psychiatric risk factors for developing type 2 diabetes and the mechanisms that could explain this increased risk. I've also focused my research on the psychological barriers that can hamper diabetes self-care activities, medication taking, for example, or physical activity, or dietary factors, and whether these factors can contribute to suboptimal health outcomes, including the development of microvascular and macrovascular diseases, and higher mortality rates. The factors that I've studied include major depressive disorder, as said, diabetes distress, physical inactivity, disordered eating, fear of hypoglycemia, and poor sleep quality in people with diabetes. I'd like to share a few key papers that I published. This is a study with Fleur van Doorn as first author. And in that paper, we have investigated whether depression is a risk factor for all-cause mortality in people with diabetes. You can see that based on a number of 16 studies, we found that all-cause mortality rates, or the odds of all-cause mortality, was 46% higher in people with diabetes compared to non-diabetic controls. Together with a lot of researchers, and with Nanna Lindekiel as first author, we have conducted an umbrella review of systematic reviews and tried to answer the question, do people with a psychiatric condition have an increased risk to develop type 2 diabetes? And I'm very happy that we also had the opportunity to analyze the wonderful Danish registries, the national registries, to study exactly the same question. Do people with a psychiatric condition have an elevated risk to develop type 2 diabetes? We could publish that in Diabetes Care last year. And right now we have submitted a paper that taps into the mechanisms that link different psychiatric conditions with incident type 2 diabetes. Together with Ari Nauer as first author, we have investigated the longitudinal associations between depression and diabetes complications, macrovascular and microvascular complications. And we concluded that these associations are probably bidirectional. So having depression and diabetes is associated with a higher risk to develop these complications, but the reverse is also true and evident. So key question, of course, is what are the mechanisms? And if we look at a figure from quite an old paper from Jeff Gonzalez, published in 2008 in Diabetes Care, we believe that there's several factors that could play that role, but there's not that much longitudinal studies right now that focus on these mechanisms. But suboptimal appointment keeping could play an important role. Poor diet, lower levels of medication taking, physical inactivity, and lower levels of glucose monitoring could explain the association between depression and poor health outcomes in people with diabetes. And we need much more prospective studies to study these associations more carefully. and also to come up with new intervention studies to see whether we can come up with good solutions for these problems. With a very large consortium, the HypoResolve consortium, we have obtained more than 26 million euro to study hypoglycemia, low blood glucose levels in people with diabetes. And here in Odense, we're heading work package 6 of the HypoResolve study, and that allowed us to investigate the psychological impact and burden of hypoglycemia. This is a very interesting part of the HypoResolve study, the hypometric study. And what I really like about this study is that we can study the psychological impact of hypoglycemia, not only with self-report questionnaires, but also with the hypometrics app. So we can study daily functioning with 3 daily assessments in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, where people report about their mood, and in the morning about their sleep quality, their energy levels, etc. And we can link that to their actual blood glucose levels, because we have the Freestyle Libre that continuously measures their glucose levels. It is a large study, collaboration in 5 European countries, the hypometric study, and right now we're analyzing these data. Last year, we've also obtained a little bit less than $1 million for a randomized controlled trial together with Frank Snoek, where we will test the effectiveness of MyDiamate, which is a self-guided web-based app for mental health in people with type 1 diabetes. And it's really targeted at lowering diabetes distress, fatigue, depression, and disordered eating based on the principles of CBT and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. And we will conduct that study in the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, and Spain. And right now, I try to obtain funding also to make the Danish translation of this app available. So thank you again for your attention. And I want to emphasize that I very much look forward to the future collaboration with other driven researchers. Thank you very much.